Well, thank you very much for staying with us on the AM show. Time now for the news review. And right before we get into our guest, you know how we do it. I'm going to introduce to you Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. If this is the first time you're hearing about them, you're a bit late, but better late than never. Now, Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic does a lot by way of treating whatever your ailments may be. But for starters, they're offering for you, if you're a man, prostate screening for free, gratis, untiache. If you're a woman, fertility screening also for free. Zilch is what you pay, nothing. And here's where you can find them. Here in Accra, they are located at Spintex opposite the Shell signboard. Then there's Kumasi Kronumabwe here behind the Angel Educational Complex. There's Takrady, Anaje State. Then there's Tema Community 22, Techiman Hanswa and Siama in Zama. Their call lines 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. But just a starter, right? For us here with the news review. It's a Wednesday, it's midweek, and we're joined by Dr. Kwame Asah-Asante. He is a political scientist. He's my former lecturer a long time ago at the Political Science Department of the University of Ghana. He also is director of the Center for European Studies at that same institution. Doc, Memawachi.
Good morning, Ben. Good to see you.
Thank you very much. Good to see you too, Doc. So here we are, starting a new morning. There's a lot to talk about. It's been a whole week. And it's really good to have you join the conversation. So let's hit the ground running. Before we get into the papers, I always give you the opportunity of talking about something that's a burning issue, burning within you that you'd like to talk about, a smoldering one. But also, I'd like to run a few things by you. We're still waiting for the second tranche of the IMF's $600 million. There's a lot of optimism on the back of how far we've got and the signals from the IMF, Kristalina Georgieva, the head, that will get it. In the meantime, there are so many things that are knocking things. As of August last year, our import cover was only about 1 month. 1 month of import cover. That is atrocious. It's not the first time that we have come close to that, though, but it's still atrocious. It means we are on the very cusp of any wind that blows could blow us away. There's also the bit about taxation. Vehicle income tax, and I'll not stop talking about them. VAT now on electricity, the emissions levy if you use a vehicle that uses diesel or petrol. The issues are many. In the meantime, we're also in the political season. The MPP parliamentary primaries are coming up. I don't know where you'll choose to go, but I just wanted to lay this basket of issues before you and have you go for about 2 minutes, 3 minutes on what you think is burning on your chest this morning. So over to you, Doc.
Yeah, I think I'll go outside all that you have said and look at the SDA request for election day to be changed.
One.
Yes. It is within their right to ask for anything, provided it is within or is permitted by law. So they can make that request. But I believe that such a request, you must also bring to bear all the other requests that could be made along the same lines. You and I know that this country allows for freedom of religion and assembly and the rest of them. So as a secular state, we have a way of doing things. Yes, now one group of Christendom is requesting for that. Is it not also the case that another group can emerge somewhere and also begin to demand for that? Let's give, for instance, for purposes of this conversation, if you have a traditional group also popping up saying that, yes, a day of the week may not also be suitable for us and the rest of them. So I believe
sometime in was it 2008? We've had a similar issue before, right?
Yeah. And this thing also popped up in University of Ghana some years ago, where people demanded that examinations should not be written on the Saturday and the rest of them. the course dismissed it, and then up to date, you and I know we write exams every day. And if you take a cue from what happened in the University of Ghana campus, where examinations are written every day, where SDA people took part and continue to take part, I believe that this one should, this request, they should look at other option. Other option could be that, yes, early voting, or you have a special day that you are allowed to be to vote, and the rest of them. But I'm not sure the state can really accommodate this thing in the manner that they are asking for, because if you look at it at the long run, one of the days will fall on Saturday. What will happen if another Saturday pops up? Are they going to ask for a change in the date? So I will urge them that, yes, we are acknowledging that it's within their right to make such a request, but they should also look at other factors and then see how far they can go to accommodate some of other views, so as to not to open the floodgate for others to also demand same. I think this is my message this morning.
Speaking of which, though, like you've said, if the traditionalists were to come forth and say, well, we want to do something on this day, or we usually do X on this day, so you cannot fix voting there. Like you said, in institutions of higher learning, these are done. How about if it fell on a Sunday? I mean, where I go to church, my parish, there are 4 masses, 6:30, 8 o'clock, 10:30, and 6 p.m. So you could say that for me, during Christmas, when I was working, I was still able to attend Mass, because if I went on duty in the morning, which I am, then I would attend Mass later in the day, in the evening. So we have those options. Some others will not have those options. But I interacted with a senior citizen, someone who's been in the Navy for a long time, high ranking, yesterday evening. And he suggested to me, listen, is it that if we missed church for one day, the Sabbath, and I am minding my words, I am not denigrating anybody's faith. I am Christian too. I am not trying to be aggressive or acerbic or unfeeling. But I am saying, if you were to miss church for good reason, and in my faith, I have also been taught that, for example, even in the Bible, it is there, for the sake of a good deed. Let's say you are going to church. You encounter that someone has had an accident. Everybody, maybe the person who hits the person has fled. And you know this person, if the person is not attended to, could die. Yes, there are 2 things. If you take the person to the hospital, sometimes you end up getting maybe accused or investigated as to whether you hit the person. But what's the human thing to do? Go to church or aid a human being who is dying? In other words, I'm going back to the Bible. Man was not made for the Sabbath. The Sabbath was made for man. So those were our reflections. That are we saying that if we miss the Sabbath once, where God knows that we are missing the Sabbath because we are fulfilling a civic responsibility, then everything, I don't know whether that point as well, or maybe you think I'm stretching it, but that was our contemplation yesterday with this naval officer, 70 plus.
I think it's a sound reasoning because I think they can make a way so as to make everybody comfortable in this process. Because there are other groups that can pop up, especially from traditional settings. What about that? Are we ready to accommodate also their demands if they should show up today? I think that is where we have to look at. And even the days that they are talking about, once you are talking about a day, a specific day on the calendar, it will change. Give yourself time, 5 years, 10 years, you will see it will change. Right. We've celebrated our birthdays on the days that we were born, but you realize that as you go forward, the days changes. So it's a difficult thing, and I'm sure they can reflect on it and then take a cue from some of the suggestions from the Christendom and other groups. I think that will help all of us. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your thoughts, Doc. Let's get into the major stories now. The newspapers we have. This morning, we don't have the benefit of the Daily Graphic newspaper and the Ghanaian Times newspaper, at least not as yet. But the Daily Guide is where we'll kickstart this from. Northern Region NDC boys on rampage, and there's Otumfuo gives IGP thumbs up. Then there's AG files papers in Cecilia Dapa Maid's trial, and ambulance case court to decide Dr. Anemane's fate. NPP names PC elections voting centers. I'm talking about the parliamentary candidates. On the back page, Kurt declares war on Egypt. Of course, it's all about the group we're in the AFCON. We lost to Cabo Verde, Cape Verde, and now we're hoping. Some have said that Egypt could actually be our easiest game. It could be, or we could suffer a trouncing. Either way, either extreme. I don't think there's going to be middle ground. We've seen some draws in the tournament so far, but I don't know. Roma sack Mourinho, and MTN thrills fans at viewing centers, and Hertha Berlin president dies at 43. Age. Nowadays, we keep saying, take care of yourself, because it's not about age. If the stress or whatever is too much, we don't know what exactly caused his death. I want you to grab a copy of the paper and get that. But I'm just saying that it's very easy nowadays with all the stresses, or stresses, if you like, for some of these things to happen. So let's stay focused. But José Mourinho has left Serie A side Roma with immediate effect, the club announced yesterday. Mourinho's contract was up at the end of the season, but following their 3-1 defeat to AC Milan on Sunday, and with the club in 9th in Serie A, the owners and managers have parted ways. It brings to an end Mourinho's spell at the club, which started in May 2021 and saw him win the Europa Conference League title in 2022 and reach the Europa League final last season. Let's get into the politics of things now. Some supporters of the National Democratic Congress went on a mindless rampage of vandalism on Monday in Tamale in the northern region, locking up the party's regional and constituency offices. The opposition party members were protesting the arrest and detention of their vice chairman, Alhaj Bewa, who has been accused of assaulting the regional treasurer, Hajia Shamima Yakubu. The irate NDC members asked that Alhaji Bewa be released from police custody immediately, or that no party national officers visit Tamale for any party function. The leader of the rampaging youth, Haruna Yakubu, told journalists in Tamale that they were giving the NDC national officers up to close of work on Monday to release Chairman Bewa. They dared the party officials to test their anger and see what would happen to them. Quoting them, they said, "Any national officer should dare come to Tamale and see if he or she can organize any party activity here. I tell you, it will be on fire," he noted. So the story goes on, but those are the developments there. From time to time, you would see these with our major political parties. Sad incidents, really. And especially ahead of election 2024, we do not want these sparks, which could lead to some sort of fire in the future. But there's also AG files papers in Cecilia Dapa Maid's trial. The Office of the Attorney General has filed the witness statements and documents it intends to rely on to prove the guilt of the 7 persons standing trial over the whopping amount of money allegedly stolen in the home of former Minister for Sanitation and Water Resources, Cecilia Abena Dapa. We all know the figures: $410,000, 300,000 euros, and 350,000 Ghana cedis, and more other items, kente, among other things. But someone asked me an interesting question the other day. He said, well, you have someone with these sums of money discovered. We still do not know the proper source of these sums of money, yet we're going after maids who stole the money. And I tried to explain to the person that, well, both sides ought to be looked at. But that's some of the thinking out there. Then let me do the story, and then I believe we can get reactions from you, Doc. There is the ruling New Patriotic Party has announced the voting centers for the January 27, 2024 parliamentary primaries in 108 constituencies around the country. The elections will be held in 22 constituencies in the Eastern region, 37 in the Ashanti region, 9 in the Western region, 2 in the Western North region, 3 in the Ahafo region, 1 in the Upper West region, 4 in the Bono region, and 1 in the Bono East region. Any reflections on these stories, Doc?
Yeah, I'll start with the NDC story, where the youth are on rampage, threatening, as it were, the party and the rest of them. This is no good news. You don't organize party based on what violence and the rest of them. I am happy that the party has done the right thing, handed those they accuse of being part of it to the police. Appropriate forum, yes. So the police would deal with it. But we want to urge party actors or political actors that if you have differences, it is important to sit down and talk than resorting to violence. These things go a long way to undermine the fortunes of the party. And it is not a good time to undertake that. In fact, we don't even countenance violence at all in any democracy. Democracy is driven by rule of law. And if you have any concern, report to your party or report to appropriate security apparatus for them to handle it. But taking the law into your own hands would not help anybody. I am sure the police are on top of their business. They will handle this thing very well. Then the MPP story. They are going to elect about 127 parliamentary candidates. We wish them well. We always want to caution that issue of violence should not be part of the process, and that the use of money, which has gradually becoming, very prominent in activities of political party, particularly MPP in this time, they should do away with that. There is no point using money to influence the choice of any leader. Once you do that, at the end of the day, you've lost it. The leader will not serve your interest. He will recoup his money or her money, and you will be the sufferer at the end of the day. Democracy is driven by what messages, issues that confront society. So if you really want to stay afloat, you need to be abreast with the problems of society and find solution in the form of what messages and the rest of them for your people. And it is not money. They should shy away from money. It is not a good thing.
All right, then let's get into some other stories. I also want to take a quick look at the other story, the ambulance case called to decide Dr. Animana's fate. A high court in Accra will on January 23, 2024, decide whether or not to release the passport of former Chief Director of the Ministry of Health, Dr. Sylvester Animana, who is standing trial alongside Minority Leader Dr. Cassio Atoforsen for causing financial loss to the state. Lawyers for the retired public servant have filed an application before the Financial and Economic Division urging the presiding judge, Justice Ifyasewa Asaributri, a Court of Appeal judge sitting as an additional High Court judge, to release the passport to enable Dr. Animana travel abroad to seek medical treatment of medical conditions which have been described as very serious. Dr. Atoforsen, Sylvester Animana, a former Chief Director of the Ministry of Health, as well as a private businessman, Richard Jakpa, are standing trial for willfully causing financial loss to the tune of 2.37 million euros to the state through a contract to purchase 200 ambulances for the Ministry of Health, among other charges. One thing of interest to me, Doc, these stories, you would notice that there is a certain fan belt on which we recirculate them, and it usually tends to be when an electoral year is approaching. I'm sure you've also heard the bit about Koku Anyidoho, among others, in respect of Professor Atta Mills's autopsy report. Another such situation. And from the other side as well, every electoral season, I ask myself sometimes, if these matters are as serious as is painted, why do those who are cited never? I mean, why is it that the long arms of the law never reach them? It's always a fan belt. Oh, look at the Airbus scandal, right? Look at some of the other things. I don't know whether you're seeing what I'm seeing, but there's a certain pattern where every how many years, getting close to an election, there are these stories. If the people are guilty, why are they still walking out there? I don't know. I don't know what your thinking is.
Yes. I think if you look at some of the issues, for what you just said, the first one. It is with a court appropriate forum. It will be dealt with. But I have also observed what you have seen. We are getting closer to elections, some issues come up. Airbus, this Professor Mills autopsy report, and the rest of them. Sometimes I ask myself, if you look at the autopsy report of Professor Mills, sometimes I ask myself, I said, Mr. Anidoho, is he a member of the family or he has a personal interest? If he has a personal interest, there's nothing wrong. He should go to appropriate forum and lay his case bare. But you hear consistently and you see a response from the family of Professor Mills. It makes everybody uncomfortable. If people feel that something untoward has been done, those who are alleging things of this nature should go to appropriate security apparatus and make their case right there, than holding everybody to ransom. I'm not comfortable with that. Professor Mills is dead. His family is mourning, but every time, they keep on reminding the family of painful situation, and I don't think it is fair to Professor Mills' family at all. If anybody believes that something wrong has been done, that person has the right to go to court so that we can spare the family, we spare the whole state and the rest of them. Any issue like Airbus issue, I mean, if you think that there was a wrong deal in that process, put people before court and let us, follow the process to the end. But people will touch on it, and when it's so important for the issue to be discussed, it will just be thrown away. We saw the last election. At the beginning of the election, it was a hot issue. When issues were at their, zenith, that we believe that this is the time for this issue to be discussed, it did not feature in part of the campaign. So I have also taken note of some of the issues. And I think that if we read in between the lines carefully, we'll be able to dismiss them and then treat them with the contempt that they deserve. If people believe that those issues, some of them have merit, let them put them before appropriate authorities to discuss.
And especially for the Professor Atta Mills issue, I find it particularly, if I were even, not being a member of the family, it's like a wound that constantly is opened from time to time. And I do not feel, I feel that from whichever ends, whether NDC, MPP, whether for propaganda or politics, I feel the right things have not been done. Because when I listened to Koko Anidaho, the family of Atta Mills, may his soul rest in peace, has questioned even those purported family members who supposedly went to engage Mr. President. But let's set that aside. Dr. Samuel Atta Mills, who is a member of parliament, has stated that, listen, if you keep poking a bee's hive long enough with a stick, the bees will come out and sting you. And here's why. And I found it surprising if that turns out to be the truth. There are mechanisms within which an autopsy report is produced and places from which you can get them. Now, Mr. President suggested that, well, when he posed the question, Koko Anidaho suggested it was a certain Samuel Atta Mills, Dr. Atta Mills, who had suggested that he had an autopsy report, but he had never seen a report. I found it a bit curious. Then the president said, how is it that a statesman of this nature passes on and we don't have... But I asked myself questions after listening to Dr. Samuel Atta Mills. He said, listen, what is this hullabaloo about? One, the AMA had a copy. In fact, the 37 military hospital also had a copy, and we got our copy from these entities. So how is it possible that I'm asking myself, is it that Koku doesn't know? Is it also that Mr. President doesn't know the mechanisms within which, or is it that Dr. Atta Mills is not telling us maybe there's something untruthful about what he said? But if indeed they got it from the AMA and we know the channels and from the 37 military hospital, why are we still talking about the issue? Do you get where I'm coming from?
I get it. And that is where I'm so surprised. Because, you can verify this from the hospital, from AMA, from the court. All right. You do all this thing. Even you want to bury a person, you need burial permit, you need autopsy report, and the rest of them. So what are we talking about? As if we can't find this. The constant reminder of the family, of the pain that they've gone through, I think that is unfair to the family. Everybody in this circle should desist from that. If you believe that something is wrong, because Professor Mills was a public figure, there's nothing wrong. You know what to do. Go to appropriate authorities, make your case, than constant reminder of the family of the pain. I think it's very, very unfair. It's very, very unfair.
Right. Let's wrap with these stories. So the Ghanaian publisher, and then I'll go to the Chronicle. NDC supporters lock up party office in Tamale. We've taken a look at that story. The CBG receives 2.5 billion Ghana cedis in fresh capital. No honeymoon. I want us to wrap on this note. No honeymoon. 2025 president must not ask for time. That's according to Abu Jinapo, the Lands and Natural Resources Minister. That story is also captured by the Chronicle newspaper. Banner headline: dealing with our challenges, 2025 will require action president, not a honeymooner. That's according to Jinapo. I want us to focus on that. Why is Jinapo saying this? I'm sure you've heard former President Mahama saying that. Looking at the economic hole, depression we find ourselves in, we also shouldn't expect a magic wand, abracadabra. You wave it and all of a sudden the problems are gone. So he will require some time. If his party wins the election, he's spoken about Ghanaians giving him time to be able to stabilize the economy. He's spoken about Ghanaians bearing with him should he become president. And that is what is at stake. Yesterday, I had interactions with Professor Bokpin, Dr. Theo Champong, both economists, and I asked them, economically speaking, how long do they feel the president would need to at least get something stable? By and large, they were suggesting a year plus. And he's also said that he will set up a national economic forum to get ideas. You remember the one that was held, during their time. But from where you sit, do Ghanaians have that patience? Do we have the time? And is it a call in the right direction to expect miracles or to be patient with whoever assumes the reins of power? That's my final bit to you.
Yeah, it's a difficult one because, once you step up into the plate that you are ready to govern, we expect that you have put all your acts together and you are ready to deal with any situation head on. So, yes, you can make a call that, yes, they should give you a break so that you'll be able to put the house in order and govern effectively. But how long? The right question you pose to your colleagues you met. That is where the difficulty is. I believe that I will urge Mr. Mahama, yes, he has made that request, but that he should go beyond this and put his team together so as to be able to handle this, because Ghanaians will never be patient with him. Because once you've taken the reins of government, they want you to hit the ground running. If you find difficulties with the system, I believe the way to go is to come out, explain to them, and then demonstrate that what the previous government did, for which reason Ghanaians have given you the nod, you are not going to repeat that. You are going to live a life that is worth emulating. That means that expenditure, we are going to see serious cuts, government size reduce, and the things that we did that affected this country so much is going to be looked at again. That is on the condition that Ghanaians give him the mandate. So we expect him to, get ready if it is his belief that he will win the election, and then deal with our problems head on. Because for patience, I'm not sure Ghanaians will be so patient with him. But he can also convince them by the little things that he can do within the honeymoon period that he's talking about to convince Ghanaians that, yes, he's in to solve their problems. And out of that, Ghanaians will now consider whether they will be patient with him or not. He should develop messages that will really resonate with people, that will deal with these problems that we have head on. And I believe that is a way to go. But there's nothing wrong in making that call. But as to whether the people will accept is another thing. but I will urge him to put his team together, make sure that he's on top of all the issues, and begin to govern, and then leave opulent lifestyle away, make sure that we have the right structures in there, and then he demonstrates with example that he cares for the people. That is all.
Right. I just wanted to, I need to add this. You know, interestingly, I've also heard, even in the fight against Galamsey, talk about, oh, be patient with us and all of that. I find it interesting that the Lands and Natural Resources Minister is saying that it's okay, it's a line of thinking. But I'm also wondering, should the MPP candidate win, I wonder whether he would also expect some level of patience since he was vice and now he's president. I'm just thinking aloud. And I don't know whether you have any thoughts on that. We also have on Joy News on Facebook this bit. If you're minded to respond in some 30 seconds. What we've posted, rate President Akufo-Addo's performance within the last 7 years in office. On a scale of 1 to 10, what would you give the president, Doc?
1 to 10?
Yeah.
I'll give him 3.
3 out of 10?
Yes.
30%?
Yes.
Do you have any reasons in just a few seconds?
The Ghanaian political system is driven highly and by the economy. Where this government has taken us to is something that will never be lost on our minds. If you look at the signals that were early to give to the government, and people said, stop borrowing, do this, all these things fell on deaf ears, and now we are where we are. I have no, other thing than to say that I'll give the government 30%. If you look at all the promises that the government made, and here I'm talking about second term, I'm not talking about first term. The first term was judged, and that is why he was giving the mandate. But for the second term, I'm seeing abysmal failure in terms of economic performance, political performance, and the rest of them. Yes, that is my view about how I see the government. The economy we are here, some of the problems we find are self-inflicting. If government had listened to advice of people, yes, we may have difficulties. COVID hit us and the rest of them. But the role that the government played in this was also a part that has brought us this far. If you look at reckless expenditure, there are a lot of, literature on that.
Right.
Auditor General reports and the rest of them. Corruption is virtually overtaking us. If you look at Transparency International reports and the rest of them. We're looking at what government with capacity to be able to handle a menace such as what Galamsey, which has all manner of health problems, and the government is sitting aloof as if there's nothing happening. All these things and more are things that are put together, and I give the government 30. But the government can convince me if from now onwards it can put its house in order, then we can also gauge from time to time and then tell what we believe in. But that is my, comment for now.
Doc, we're grateful for your time, and I wish you a wonderful Wednesday, like the Germans will say, a wunderbar Wednesday. Dr. Kwame Asah-Asante, political scientist and director of the Center for European Studies at the University of Ghana. I'm asking you as well, as we have the rest of our conversation, what do you think? How would you rate President Akufo-Addo's performance within the last 7 years in office? We're finally in the 8th year. This segment always brought to you by Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, and today has been no different. You can locate them here in Accra at Spintex, opposite the Shell signboard, Kumasi Kronoma Boyhia behind the Angel Educational Complex, the Stakrade Anaji State Tema Community 22, Techiman Hanswe and Siama Enzima. And of course, you know what they're offering you. If you're a man, prostate screening for free. If you're a woman, fertility screening for free. And of course, they can give you whatever else you need at their clinic. Their call lines 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. We'll bring you more on the AFCON, of course, South Africa succumbing to Mali, among others, in sports up next.